Hi, everybody. If you're watching this, you're as excited as I am about the 2018-2019 VEX Robotics Competition game, Turning Point. For this video, I want to do a little bit of strategic analysis, plus go over a few field element and objects that pique my interest. The first being the caps, flags, balls, scoring post, and platforms. The caps themselves will play a vital role to this game. They are worth 2 points each on the scoring post and 1 point each on the foam tiles themselves. So to think of a cap, just think of a stop sign with a cylinder in the middle of it. They're not really that heavy. They're only 0.75 pounds. So very light object this year. Compare that to the mobile goals, they were almost 5 pounds. So very light, but very important on the scoring. The caps can be scored on the scoring post, which are either 20 inches tall or 32 inches tall. And every time you score a cap on your scoring post, you get 2 points. Just flipping the cap over gives you a point as well. There are 8 of these, and because of the new hoarding rule, you can't just throw them all in the corner for your side and say blue gets 8 points that way. You can't also just knock them off the post outside the field. You actually have to grab it and control it and bring it back into the field of play if you're trying to descore them. On this, the important thing to note with the caps and post are you can only expand if you're inside the expansion zone. Meaning, if you're near the flags, you can't go ahead and lift a cap up. You have to wait until you're inside that expansion zone to score it on the post themselves. I think caps are going to become a very important part of this game the further on in the season we go. First, I think a lot of people are going to build ball shooters, which is very important as well. We'll get to that. But because of the caps' ability to score 12 points just on your post, you need to gain those 12 points to be very competitive during the game. Also, another major point with caps is you'll have to have a rotation gripper, I believe, to really do well with the caps. But what I mean by that is if you grab it, you can rotate it 90 or 180 degrees. If the blue side's up and you're red, you want to not have to flip it over then grab it. It would be better just to grab it and rotate it. There's a lot of mechanisms that do that. That's pretty much that on the caps as far as points go. The major points in this game come from the balls themselves hitting the flags and creating what I'll call a turning point. There are 20 balls in this game. You can only control 2 balls at one time. I could see a lot of teams using some flywheel type designs to where they shoot 2 real quick and the top one hits the top flag and the middle one hits the second ball hits the middle flag. That would be a 4-point play, which is the most you can get in most part of this game besides the centering of the platform. But I'll talk a little bit about that later. What I would assume is going to happen is you're going to have a team focusing on scoring flags first. It could be a back and forth battle once teams get them locked in and targeted. A lot of people are going to bring back nothing but net and how hard it was at first to score those balls and say, oh, it's going to be too inconsistent. It's going to be too hard to hit the flags. I don't believe that. The balls are smaller, plus they're non-foam, which means they're going to have a lot more consistency interacting with your devices. I know both punchers, flywheels, those type of mechanisms, the foam impacted those if you had a new set of balls versus an old set of balls. Because they're plastic, you're not going to see that as much. Each flagpole is worth 5 points between the 3 flags, so there's 15 total points there. With the caps, of course, there's only 14 total points. The last thing that teams can do is center park. And to center park on the yellow platform, you have to be contacting it, not contacting any alliance platform, and not contacting the foam tiles or white tape. I could see there being a late game thing to where a team will kind of grab up on their partner and they'll both be in the center. We'll see if that happens during this game. A la some FRC style bridge climbing. You want to go back and look at some of those designs. But I think the parking honestly isn't worth it from a strategic and point value wise. Here's why I say that. Each flag pole is 15 points, right? Or 5 points each. So the flags are 15. The cones themselves are 14 because you have your 12 points on your post and then 2 other caps. Between those two 27 points, it's going to be hard to give up time. If a robot can flip 2 caps around or hit 2 flags, they have almost garnered as many points as the other alliance. Because not only do you earn 2 points for yourself, but you're taking away 2 points for the other team. So let's say blue has 4 of the 2-point flags and red only has 2, then blue would have 8 points, red would only have 4 points. Well, if red alliance hits 2 of those flags, blue alliance now only has 4 points and red has 8 points. So it's not only scoring for yourself, but it's scoring against the other team. So that's why I could see at Worlds it becoming a lot like the hanging situation from Starstruck, to where it's worth it more to continue scoring the objects than climbing at the end, even though it's a greater point value. I think autonomous is pretty important in this game, but I don't think it's the end all be all of things. I think the best part about autonomous this year is you're going to start being able to gain control of items, which in this game I'm going to bring up a lot of Starstruck references. That's how it was in Starstruck. If you got a lot of your objects over, then the other alliance has to catch up while you're just scoring even more. Some major rules, like I said, the extension zone is a huge major rule for this year, and the most major rule that I know of now is because of V5. V5 is awesome. If you haven't gone and checked the specs on the motors and motor controllers and brains themselves, go do that. It's important to understand what you're going to be buying there if you are going into V5. It's a lot better. But I think VEX did a very good job this year, the game design committee, of running the rules to where it's still feasible to not run V5 and still compete well due to motor limitations. This year, a team can either use pneumatics and 10 of the old 393 motors or only 6 of the new V5 motors. If you're not running pneumatics, a team will use 12 normal motors or 8 V5 motors. Now, I think that's important because, like I said before, it's going to be very important to manipulate the scoring objects. So if you're going to be a cap type bot, rotating the cap is important. Or if you're going to try to score more for your opponents in the parking, having something that can lift them up, important. I think this year we're going to see a bring back of pneumatics. It just wouldn't make sense in my mind unless you're using the old system. If you're using the V5 system, I really see a use for pneumatics because a motor can only actuate one type of thing, one type of product, without using some very fancy gearboxing and planetary systems. So by giving up 2 V5 motors, you're gaining a lot more actuations. through pneumatics. So I think a lot of teams that use V5 will end up using pneumatics. I could be wrong on that. I think most Cortex teams, though, won't do that. They'll use the 2-motor advantage because they'll have a 4-motor advantage. Being under 18 inches while you're attacking the flags is a thing, so now it is a true shooting game. Hope you've had a great time listening to this just general game breakdown. In my next video, I'm going to break down the specific scorings and strategies on why I would attack what certain objects over other objects. Thanks for listening to this video. If you find it informative, leave a like. If not, quit watching them and I'll quit making them. Thank you.